Hey guys, in our 5.10 notes, we will deal with general trig equations. And here we will try to solve each equation in a specific or in the indicated domain. For example 1, or for the first one, we have 2 sine theta plus 47 degrees equal to 1. So I can rewrite this as sine of theta plus 47 degrees is equal to 1/2. From here, you know that for the sign to be positive, you are actually located in the first quadrant, since our restricted range is the belly. So in the first quadrant, I have 1 here, 2, and root 3. So I can tell that our principal value is 30 degrees. Note down I'm using degrees because we're using theta here. So from here, I will say theta plus 47 degrees is equal to 30 degrees plus 360n, or the second portion is your pi minus, so I will say theta plus 47 degrees is equal to, pi is actually 180, so I will do 180 minus 30 degrees, and of course that's your 150 degrees, so I will say 150 degrees plus 360n. You will solve this separately by subtracting 47 on both sides. You will have theta is equal to 30 minus 47 is negative 17 degrees plus 360n, or theta is equal to, if you do 150 minus 47, you get 103 degrees plus 360n. Well, our goal was not to find the general solution, although this is a general solution. We want to find the answers, or all possible values between 0 and 360. Negative 17 is not between 0 and 360, however, 103 is. So the first answer is 103. So my first answer is 103. That's in case I plug in 0 here. 0 here will not work, so I'll plug in 1. And if you plug in 1, you get 360 minus 17, which is 343. If you plug in another 1 here, you pass 360. So these are the only 2 possible solutions. Let's look at the second one. For the second one, we start with 4 times the cosine square of theta is equal to 1. So if I want to rewrite this one, I will say cosine square of theta is equal to 1 over 4. Well, there's no real answer for this, or I cannot build this, so I will go ahead and move this to the other side to get cosine square of theta minus 1/4 is equal to 0. Note that this is a difference of 2 squared. So I will say cosine of theta minus 1/2 times the cosine of theta plus 1/2 is equal to 0. Now that I have those two, I will split them in 2. On one side, I will say cosine theta minus 1/2 equals 0, or the cosine of theta plus 1/2 is equal to 0. I will solve them separately. The left side gives me cosine theta is equal to 1/2. Compared to this one, that will give me cosine theta is equal to negative 1/2. If you solve this portion, you will know that, by the way, this is your adjacent over hypotenuse, and it's in the first quadrant. Same thing here, adjacent over hypotenuse in the first quadrant. So for the first one, I know since it's in the first quadrant, I'll put Q quadrant 1. This one being cosine, I would say is in quadrant 2. In quadrant 1, this angle will be pi over 3. So I would say cosine theta. Actually, we can talk about theta already. So it's actually theta is equal to pi over 3 plus 2 pi n, or theta is equal to negative pi over 3 plus 2 pi n. Well, instead of 2 pi n, since we're dealing with degrees, so I will go ahead and write 360n. So this is 360n and 360n. You should know that I'm doing plus and minus because I'm dealing with cosine. On this other side, I will have theta is equal to, in the second quadrant, reference angle is still pi over 3. So instead of pi over 3, I will have 2 pi over 3. I'm sure mixing all of them. Pi over 3 is actually 60. So I will write 60 here and 60. And here, instead of 2 pi over 3, I will have 120 plus 360n. And theta equals negative 120 plus 360n. This is just the general solution. Pay close attention to the interval in which you want theta, between negative 180 and 180. So the first value is definitely negative 120, which is the lowest one. The second one is negative 60, which is this one. I also have 60 and 120. 60 and 120. You cannot plug in 1 in any of them, because if you plug in 1, you will pass the 180 or you will be below the 180. So these are your solutions. Let's look at the third one. The third one is tangent theta is equal to secant theta. Tangent theta secant theta is equal to tangent theta. Well, I will move everything to the left side. And if you move everything to the left side, you get tangent of theta secant theta minus tangent of theta. From here, I know I can factor the tangent theta out, and I get 1 minus, actually I get secant theta minus 1. This is equal to 0. Now, if I split them in two, I'll have tangent theta equal to 0, or secant theta minus 1 equals 0, or secant theta is equal to 1. Well, for the secant to be equal to 1, you remember secant is 1 over cosine theta. From here, I will tell that cosine theta must also be equal to 1 for the secant to be 1. When you see 1, you go on the axis. And on the axis, the only place where the cosine is equal to 1 is actually at this location. So at this location, I have the cosine equals 1. And that location is 0 degrees. So for this, I will say theta is equal to 0 degrees plus 360n. Let's deal with the tangent. Tangent of theta is equal to 0. For the tangent to be 0, note that tangent is sine theta over cosine theta. If the tangent is 0, it means that the numerator must be 0. So in fact, the sine of theta must also be 0. Once again, I'm on the axis. But to get 0, I must be somewhere here or here. So this place, the coordinates are, of course, 1, 0, and this is negative 1, 0. And what are those two angles? This angle is 180 degrees compared to this angle, which is 0 degrees. So I kind of have two solutions. One of them being 0 plus 360n. Well, these two are identical. These two are identical, so I will need to write only one if needed. The other one is actually theta is equal to 180 degrees plus 360n. Well, 180 and 360 have something in common. So I will say 180 times 1. Let's just leave it like this. I don't want to confuse you. So I will leave it like this. Note that this is just the general solution, and we want it all possible one. So I can leave it like this, and this is my final answer. I can box these two as my solution because I cannot give real values. It's infinite since n is an integer, and integer is actually z. All right. let's look at the next one. The next one is maybe the most complicated because it looks a little different than the other. But in order for me to solve this, I need to transform either all in cosine or all in sine. It's easier to transform into sine because cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared. So I will rewrite this one as 3 minus 3 sine x minus 2 times 1 minus sine squared of x. Now if I distribute this negative 2, I get 3 minus 3 sine x minus 2, but plus 2 sine squared of x. I will rearrange it and write it in order from decreasing power. That's 2 sine squared of x minus 3 sine x plus 1. And this is equal to 0, of course. Well, this looks very familiar. It looks like a quadratic, but it's equivalent to a quadratic of the form 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. To factor this, I will say that this is equal to, there are plenty ways of factoring. I'm going to show you the steps. For a matter of time, I won't show you all the steps on how to factor because I expect you to know how to factor. The 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 is actually equal to 2x minus 1 times x minus 1. How do I get it? You find two numbers that the product of gives you 2 times 1, which is 2. The sum gives you negative 3, and you expand it. But once I get to this level, I can transform now my trig function to 2 times the sine of x minus 1 times sine of x minus 1 equal to 0. So I will set each portion equal to 0. That would therefore be 2 sine x equals to, let's say, minus 1 equals 0, or sine x minus 1 equals 0. So solving this one, I will say sine of x is equal to 1/2, or sine of x is equal to 1. Well, this is on the axis, and the only place where the sine is equal to 1 is actually this point here, and that is pi over 2. So for this, I will just say x is equal to pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. But for this one, I will know that sine of x is equal to 1/2. The opposite is 1. The hypotenuse is 2. The principal value is pi over 6. So I will say x is equal to pi over 6 plus 2 pi n, or x is equal to pi minus pi over 6, which is 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi n. Well, at this position, I already have most of my solution. I have 1, 2, and 3 so far, because my solution are between negative pi and pi. So your solutions will be pi over 6, pi over 2, 5 pi over 6. Well, plug in anything, you will pass negative pi and pi. So these are your solutions.